Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your patience. I know you've been eagerly awaiting this moment. Welcome to the Joint Government Operations Committee for the Rule Review. We are officially called to order. Clerk, please take the roll.
Senators Bowling. Bowling is present. Senator Crow. Senator Crow is present. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hatcher is present. Senator Kyle. Senator Kyle is present. Senator Oliver. Senator Rose. Senator Rose is present. Senator Seal. Senator Seal is present. Senator Sutherland. Senator Sutherland is present. Chairman Jackson. Chairman Jackson is present. Representatives Clemens. Crawford. Crawford's present. Faison. Faison's present. Fritz. Fritz is present. Glenn. Glenn is present. Hardaway. Hardaway is present. Helton Haynes. Helton Haynes is present. Mayberry. Mayberry is present. McKenzie. McKenzie is present. Parkinson. Reedy. Reedy is present. Renault. Rudder. Rudder is present. Sherrill. Sherrill is present. Towns. Chairman Lafferty. Chairman Lafferty is present. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum in both chambers.
Thank you for that. And members, before we get started, do we have any personal orders or announcements? Yes, sir. Representative Glenn, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it has been brought to my attention that today is Representative Hardaway's birthday. So I think we should give him a big old happy birthday.
Now we know why the photographer's here today. All right. Thank you for that. And happy birthday, Representative Hardaway. Public folks out there is a sign-up sheet. If anybody is wishing to get on the list to speak, it's up here. I believe it's down here on my right, your left, if you need to take a look at that. And we're going to jump a little bit out of order here. We're going to jump to our consent items from our consent calendar. Items number 12 and 13. If there are any objections, I think an email went out previously asking if anybody had any concerns. There were none. We ended up with consent. Could I get motion on the consent calendar? We have motion for positive consideration, and we have a second. Members of the House, let's go ahead with you first. All those in favor of passing this with positive recommendation on items 12 and 13, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? And the ayes have it. And clerk, if you would please take the vote in the Senate.
Senator Bowling. Senator Bowling votes aye. Senator Crow. Senator Crow votes aye. Senator Hatcher.
Aye.
Senator Hatcher votes aye. Senator Kyle. Senator Kyle votes aye. Senator Oliver. Senator Rose. Senator Rose votes aye. Senator Seal. Senator Seal votes aye. Senator Sutherland. Senator Sutherland votes aye. Chairman Jackson. Chairman Jackson votes aye. Mr. Chairman, you have 8 ayes.
All right, and with that, it passes out with positive recommendation. Back to the beginning. Department of Human Resources, item number 1 on our agenda today. This is an emergency rule by the Department of Human Resources. And I see you guys making your way to the front. Thank you very much. And I believe you know how this works, but if you would please introduce yourselves for the record and tell us what you're about. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. My name is Eric Mayo. I'm Senior Policy Advisor for the Department of Human Resources. I have Andrew Puryear with me as well. He's our Senior Associate Counsel. And thank you all for having us here today. We're here to present an emergency rule amendment prompted by an executive order from President Trump that impacts Tennessee's definition of Equal Employment Opportunity Plan. On January 21st, 2025, the President issued Executive Order 14173 titled Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity. This order repealed several prior executive orders, including Executive Order 11246, and directed federal agencies to terminate any policies that involve race or sex-based preferences. The order emphasizes a return to merit-based employment and requires all federal contracts and grants to include compliance clauses, with noncompliance risking the loss of federal funds. To comply, DOHR updated its definition of Equal Employment Opportunity Plan in Rule 1120.01.01. The revised language now reads, a statistical document which identifies and analyzes patterns in the participation and utilization of certain groups in the workforce based on federal and/or state law requirements. This maintains Tennessee's data tracking capability while aligning with federal expectations and emphasizing legal neutrality. EO 14173 requires compliance within 90 days, which is why we did an emergency rule to avoid any disruption for federal funding for the state. Also of note, we have initiated a rulemaking hearing to make this permanent. That public hearing was held on May 19th with no public comments being received. Our hope is to have this finalized in October of this year, pending final approval. This update ensures the state remains in compliance with federal law, protects critical funding, and reinforces a merit-based employment framework across state government. At this time, we're happy to answer any questions. Appreciate you having us today.
Thank you for that explanation. With that, members, do we have any questions for our, Representative McKenzie, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the presenter, so as I read this, it says certain departments and agencies. Are you saying that every state falls under the purview of this executive order and every aspect of the state has to comply with this executive order?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The executive order indicates that anybody who has a federal contract or has federal funding, and we had previously complied under the previous executive orders, so we just updated our equal opportunity plan to reflect that.
Representative McKenzie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if that was an answer to my question. You said that, but I guess my question is, so you said that you complied with departments. This applies to departments and agencies. Are you saying that the state of Tennessee is a department or agency? Are you saying that you're being in the overabundance of caution because we receive federal funds that you guys are complying with this? But as it is written, we're not considered a department or agency.
You recognize?
Yes, sir, that's right. So the executive order had two pieces. So all federal departments and agencies had to comply with the executive order to change their rules. Additionally, anybody who receives federal funding or has contracts with the federal government, there's a piece in the executive order that requires compliance as well. So while we are not a federal department, obviously we do have to comply under the contract piece and the funding piece.
Thank you for that explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Members, do we have any other questions? Representative Glenn, you're recognized, sir.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does that mean you're gonna, in your application process, are you gonna take out race, gender, all that out of the application process so that you are, so obviously we don't need that anymore. So will that come out of the application process?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll have to double check. I don't think that we are tracking that for the application purpose currently.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the question. Representative Hardaway, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon to you, gentlemen. So that answer wasn't very clear for me. You said you don't think that you're tracking. Is that what you said? And if you would, define tracking versus gathering the data. If you're not gathering the data, and if it's on the form, what is the purpose of having that information gathered in the first place? Or what was the purpose?
I'm not sure this is about gathering information. I'm sorry, please, response, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir. I'll have to double check exactly what information we've been collecting on the applications. I will say what we have, what information we have, we're not using for, we're not using that to make hiring decisions, certainly. I will double check to see which information is actually on the application process for new applicants to make sure that I answer your question correctly, and I'll follow up with that.
You're recognized, sir.
And what are the cited in the impact, fiscal impact is financials, implications? Give us a clear idea of what those could look like.
You're recognized.
Thanks, sir. My understanding is non-compliance with the executive order would put all federal funding at risk, and we want to be very careful not to do that.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, all federal funding For what department? For the state of Tennessee or for a particular department or your office or what?
You recognized.
Thanks, sir. Again, my understanding of the executive order is that any federal contract or funding would be at risk if the state does not comply with our definition of equal employment opportunity plan.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to ask to go out of committee right now for legal, but at some point, I'd like for us to get a clear understanding of what the possible consequences could be. There have been some courts that have cited the illegality, unconstitutionality of penalizing other departments, other agencies on other matters that have no relationship whatsoever to a department or agency action that the federal government may disagree with. So I'd like to, at some point, make sure that myself and others who might have that concern, that we would meet with you and get that information, Mr. Chairman, from the legal. So I don't think we really address. Thank you. I don't think you are really at risk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Members, any other questions? Chairman Reedy? We have a motion and we have a second. All right, let's change it up, get a little crazy. Let's do the Senate vote first. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote. I'm sorry, public comment. I forgot any public comment. Seeing none. All right. Now, Mr. Clerk, please take the vote in the Senate.
Senator Bowling votes aye. Senator Crow? Senator Crow votes aye. Senator Hatcher?
Aye.
Senator Hatcher votes aye. Senator Kyle? Senator Kyle votes no. Senator Oliver? Senator Rose? Senator Rose votes aye. Senator Seal? Senator Seal votes aye. Senator Sutherland? Senator Sutherland votes aye. Chairman Jackson? Chairman Jackson votes aye. Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes and 1 no.
Thank you for that. Moves out positive recommendation in the Senate. Now to the House. Members, all those in favor of positive recommendation indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Moves out with positive recommendation.
Got you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next up, folks, item number 2, Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission. Item number 2 is an emergency rule by the commission. Representatives are making themselves comfortable. And you are recognized. I believe you know how it works. Introduce yourself and tell us about the rule.
I am on. Thank you. Good morning, Chairman, members. My name is Blair Beatty. I'm Legislative Director with the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. To my left, at the very end of the table, I have Deputy Director Frank Fiss and Executive Director Jason Maxedon. As Chairman mentioned, item 2 is an emergency rule that moves the existing fee of $10 for the Boater Safety Education Exam certificate from statute to rule. The amount of the fee is not being adjusted. This change is made to comply with Public Chapter 214, which was passed this past session, which allows for boater education exams to be taken online. Customers may still take the exam in person if they would like. And with that, Chairman, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, do we have any questions? Representative Fritz, you recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for coming today. Just a quick question, our little app to buy license, will this change anything on the app?
You recognized.
That's an excellent question, and I'm going to defer to perhaps Ms. Susie Christ, who is not sitting back here. Chairman, do you mind if I turn around and seek a response from her?
I have no objections.
Thank you. It will not, no, sir.
All right. Thank you for that. Appreciate the help from the gallery. Representative Hardaway, you recognize, sir.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon to you.
Sir.
So that we're putting a brand new fee in place?
No, sir. Currently, the fee is set in statute, and because most other fees promulgated by the commission are in rule, we're just simply moving it from statute to rule. The fee already exists. When you go online and take the boater education exam, it's a $10 fee. That will still be the case. We're just moving it from statute to rule.
All right, and if myself, or let's pretend that Senator Bell comes back on the committee, if we ask that you be able to substantiate that fee with actual costs for delivering, administering that test, would you be prepared to do so? Is that the approach you took?
I believe we can. I am not prepared to do so in this moment, no, sir, but I can seek that information from our licensing chief and get back with you on that.
All right, if you would do that and get it to the chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I think in keeping with our mission to make sure that we don't put unnecessary fees on the public, that we need to have that kind of background information when we have the opportunity to move a fee from statute to rules, that we have the opportunity to also review the why behind it, make sure that the numbers are justified. Thank you,
Understood.
Chairman. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Senator Kyle, you're recognized.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to make sure, appreciate you all being here. When you move it from statute to rule, then it allows you all to govern, which could possibly be a price increase. You could,
So in the Public Chapter 214 that passed last year, there was actually a maximum set. So the fee would never be able to increase beyond $15.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairman.
And thank you. And just clarification, did I just hear that right? It would never be able to increase more than
So long
$15
as-
or it would not be able to be increased by more than $15?
The latter, sir.
Okay, thank you.
No, I'm sorry. $15 is the cap.
Is the cap?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that's
Yes,
what I was
sir.
curious about. Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions? Seeing none. Do we have public comment? Look for public comment. It's been 60 days. Give me a break. We have a motion for a positive recommendation and we have a second. We'll go ahead and take a vote on that in the House. Members, all those in favor of positive recommendation indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Moves out of the House with a positive recommendation. Now we're on to the Senate. Mr. Clerk, if you would please take the vote.
Senators Bowling. Senator Bowling votes aye. Senator Crow. Senator Crow votes aye. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hatcher votes aye. Senator Kyle. Senator Kyle votes aye. Senator Oliver. Senator Rose. Senator Rose votes aye. Senator Seal. Senator Seal votes aye. Senator Sutherland. Senator Sutherland votes aye. Chairman Jackson. Chairman Jackson votes aye. Mr. Chairman, you have 8 ayes.
Thank you for that. It does appear the rule will move out of the Senate with a positive recommendation. Thank you. And next, let's jump down to item number 4, I think, real quick. This looks like it'll be the easier of your last two.
Yes, sir. I'm
All right,
cautiously
so-
in agreement with you.
So, this item, also Tennessee Fish and Wildlife, you're already seated. Thank you. And if you would please introduce yourself again for the record and go ahead and tell us about the rule here on item 4.
Yes, sir. Blair Beatty, Legislative Director with the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. And item number 4 on your agenda, adjust the fees for the certification number, often called the boat registration, to account for the 22% increase in the consumer price index since the last adjustment, which occurred in 2019. The registration amounts are tied to the length of the vessels and are increasing by 22% across the board. For example, a boat over 16 feet but less than 26 feet is increasing from $29 to $35 for a 1-year registration, $56 to $68 for a 2-year registration, and $83 to $101 for a 3-year registration. The agency received 10 comments on this rule. However, none were received that were in opposition of the fee increase. In fact, a few of them suggested that it could be raised higher to ensure that we have law enforcement on our waterways. That is what that money goes toward, excuse me. And that is a simple explanation of that rule. Chairman, happy to take questions.
Thank you for that. Members, do we have any questions? Representative Hardaway, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't have one until she said that's what these fees are going towards. So just the same caution to make that information available to the chairman
Absolutely.
so he can share it with the committee.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you for that. And Representative Fritz, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question on page 107 in the rule amendment, the increases. And when I looked at 1 year, 2 year, and 3 year, there's a different percentage increase. Just curious why we were 20%. And I only looked at some of them, but like the first 16 feet and under boat is 20% for 1 year, it's 21.4% for 2 years, and 22% for the 3 years. Was there a specific reason why?
You're recognized.
Yeah, this is Frank Fisk, Tennessee Wildlife. The rounding was on a round up process. We went to the whole number so that some of them we wouldn't capture the whole. We didn't want to go beyond to capture the full 22%.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? All right, I believe that takes care of that end of it. I do have a question about once these registrations are in place, are they transferable? I just bought a 3-year license or registration. I sell my boat in year 1, replace it with a comparable boat. How would that look?
I'll take it. No, sir, they're not transferable.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Senator Rose, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. It's probably for you, Frank. When those registrations are up, I think I've got 2 up, one late July and one in August. One time you would send notice out, is it up to the boat owner to know when that registration is due?
You're recognized.
Ultimately, it is up to the boat owner, but we do have people that will sign up for our auto renew.
Very
And
good.
that's a good practice for anyone that is forgetful.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for that question. Members, any other questions? Seeing none. Oh, public comment. I'll get it on the next one. No public comment. We have a motion and a second on a positive recommendation. Let's go ahead and take the vote in the Senate. Mr. Clerk, if you would please take the vote in the Senate.
Senator Bowling. Senator Bowling votes aye. Senator Crow. Senator Crow votes aye. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hatcher votes aye. Senator Kyle. Senator Kyle votes no. Senator Oliver. Senator Rose. Senator Rose votes aye. Senator Seal. Senator Seal votes aye. Senator Sutherland. Senator Sutherland votes aye. Chairman Jackson. Chairman Jackson votes aye. Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes and 1 no.
Thank you for that. Moves out with a positive recommendation from the Senate. House members, we are up for a vote now. All those in favor of positive recommendation indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Moves out with positive recommendation. All right, we're going to back up on our agenda items here to item number 3, still with Tennessee Fish and Wildlife. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Blair Beatty and possibly the former legislative director of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency after we finish our conversation on this rule today. To my left, again, I have Deputy Director Frank Fisk and Executive Director Jason Maxedon with the agency. The amendment before you today ensures that the agency can continue its mission to serve Tennesseans and visitors through management of the state's wildlife resources. Not unlike other state wildlife resource agencies, TWRA is funded primarily through the sale of licenses and permits. The agency receives reimbursement match for some portion of those sales through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. This money is used to preserve, manage, and enhance the state's fish and wildlife along with their habitats while also supporting communities by improving access to hunting and fishing recreational opportunities on land and water for Tennesseans and visitors. In more practical terms, this means we are maintaining and improving over 1,200 boat ramps across the state while routinely receiving requests for additional access points. This includes the renovations and improvements to the 18 Bill Dance signature lakes. Similarly, hatcheries staff are stocking over 9 million fish every year. This work is the cornerstone of success for the numerous fishing tournaments and tourism dollars Tennessee draws each year. Our officers are ensuring safety on our waterways. As you know, Tennessee is a water-rich state with significant connectivity to our sister states. As more people flock to Tennessee and surrounding states, the requests for additional presence on our rivers and streams have increased and become more critical to public safety. Much of our staff are working to provide sufficient wildlife habitat to support big game, small game, and non-game species across 137 WMAs, which in turn results in better and increased hunting opportunities for sportsmen and women. Staff work to maintain almost every WMA to suit the needs of not just varying types of species, but also varying types of hunters, each with different and sometimes conflicting hunting priorities. From deer to turkey to waterfowl and bears, our staff are always working to collect data on our wildlife and sportsmen to develop seasons and execute habitat plans that provide the best experience and opportunity for all. We are focusing on our youth and underserved communities by providing innovative education and outreach programs, including statewide youth hunting and fishing initiatives, wildlife education in schools, and community workshops, such as Becoming an Outdoors Woman, which I had the pleasure of participating in this past weekend with 100 other women. In 2024, our staff conducted approximately 530 field visits with private landowners to assist them with drafting Farm Bill program applications and management plans for their private lands. This is just a snapshot of what staff do to support sportsmen and women in conservation of Tennessee's natural resources for future generations. I did a better job of explaining where the money goes this time, Representative. So how does this rule support those efforts? And I'm almost done. I appreciate y'all's attention. License and permit fees. I heard that. License and permit fees have not been adjusted in 10 years, the last increase occurring in 2015. Per statute, the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission is authorized to adjust fees to account for the increase in the Consumer Price Index, which has risen by 32%. Just as several of you have likely seen in your own businesses, the expenses necessary to support agency services has increased even more so. Fish food has increased by 100%, gravel by 77%, crush and run by 27%. Basic services such as waste collection have gone up 106%, and salaries have increased by 40% since 2016. In developing this rulemaking, the commission did not opt for a blanket set increase across the board. Instead, it tried to take a thoughtful approach by reviewing each license individually and attempting to strike a balance between the funding needed to maintain operations and what may be reasonable for the average sportsman. For example, one of the most popular licenses is the Resident Combo Hunting and Fishing Annual License. This license is increasing by $9 from $32 to $44. This equates to a 27% increase in CPI. Likewise, the Resident Annual Sportsman License is increasing by $20 from $165 to $185, which correlates to only a 12% increase. Licenses for veterans and those tied to a disability, which there's over more than a dozen, are not increasing at all, and some sportsmen, such as trout fishermen, will see a decrease in license fees. Additionally, the amendment attempts to reduce confusion for customers by streamlining the license structure. These changes eliminate, combine, or add new licenses and permits to provide more comparable options for all ages in both residents and non-residents. For example, as requested by several sportsmen, particularly in East Tennessee, the license structure proposed moves away from a weapon-based framework and aligns Tennessee with many other states by moving to a species-based license option. I know many of you have looked at these license fees in other states and asked, why are Tennessee's higher? Please understand that this is not necessarily a difference in budgets between the states, but a difference in funding structure. Missouri, Georgia, and Arkansas all receive a portion of sales tax revenue to fund their agency services. Mississippi receives a recurring general fund appropriation. Kentucky's commission voted this spring to increase fees and create new licenses, and North Carolina updated theirs to align with CPI in 2024. Again, we recognize that a fee increase of any kind is rarely welcomed, and neither the commission or agency takes this position lightly. At the same time, we are striving to fund the services we provide to the citizens of Tennessee through the means as established in statute. With that, Chairman, I'll take any questions, and of course, we have Director and Deputy Director here too.
Thank you for that explanation. Senator Kyle, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you all for being here today. My concern is whether these increases will actually bring in revenue. Let me say that it may not, because if people don't buy the license due to the increase, they could hunt anyway or would hunt anyway. And then what? The increase in law enforcement? Pay for them to scout the area and see who's out there with or without a license. We all know that hunting is a hobby, it's recreation, and it's therapy. And to people, a lot of people in this state, it's food on the table. And of course, it helps our tourism. We need to consider the cost. Many people are on a fixed income that utilize these precious waters and land. My thought is the uncertainty of today's economy. A fee increase is just out of reach for families and citizens at this time. I'm not in favor of this measure and will not support this increase, and therefore I move for a negative recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that. Oh. We have a motion and a second for a negative recommendation. You're recognized, Representative Faison. Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is really a conundrum. Typically, it's the Democrats asking, can we hold off and withdraw the question? But there's a lot of people who have questions, and it's kind of funny for a Republican to ask a Democrat to withdraw. But I would just kindly ask you, can we hold off and let other people ask some questions, or are you just pretty much hell-bent on this one?
You're recognized.
I call for the question. That was just what I was putting forth on. Your staff is shaking their head. I have my comments on the record of why I don't think that this is the right move in today's economy. Any further remarks? I would be glad to withdraw at this time.
Understood. I believe you wanted to withdraw your closing remarks about the negative, moving for negative recommendation. Is that right?
My intention was to never, ever cut off any members of this committee to speak. I regret that I didn't know the right procedure, but my hope is that other members on this committee will get their comments on record.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate you. All right. Representative Fritz, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for all the work you put into this and the whole comparison between consumer price index. And I think that's so appropriate, and I appreciate the effort you've put into it. As we've talked some, I think that every Tennessean benefits from TWRA, or can. Maybe some don't realize, but hikers, boaters, fishermen, hunters, sportsmen at the sports park, like where we did our meet and ski. I just think it's a valuable thing. And I would like to see, I'm not in favor of this approach. I would like to see us have a sustainable funding model. And whether that's sales tax or a portion of existing sales tax, I don't think we need a new sales tax. And if it's some of the other, our budget's continuously growing, I don't know why we wouldn't take care of something that takes care of all Tennesseans. So shifting the additional cost to citizen taxpayers in a time when there are those other options, I don't think it's the right thing to do. I'm fully supportive of what y'all are trying to do and the culture shift, just to be candid, that I know that you're leading. I think that changing to a more sustainable model, especially on the law enforcement side of things, is going to warm the public. And I think it'd be a good thing. So I'll have to be a no on moving this forward, but I want you to know I want to try to help make sure TWRA is healthy. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on our list, we've got Senator Sutherland. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you. How much money will this increase bring in total assessment?
You're recognized.
Make sure you're recognized.
Executive Director Jason Maxidon, Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. So it would be 12 million, sir, is what this would bring in.
Bring in 12 million. Right now, your budget is around 130 million. So this would be $12 million. My understanding, when we look at studies that the state of Tennessee and TWRA brings in around $1.8 billion a year. And your budget is $130 million. And every time I go by a rooster tail, a fishing rod, or a shotgun, I'm paying sales tax on that. And a portion of those is not coming back to TWRA. You know, a few years ago, when the gas tax was raised, the money that was collected at the boat marinas went to improve the docks and the marinas in that area. And I think that's what we should look at, using some of these sales tax to offset that, because what we're doing is basically a double taxation on hunter and fishermen. We need to give the sales tax back to this. TWRA, whatever you help generate. And I think the legislator would be willing to work with you on that. I cannot and will not vote for a increase in hunter and fishermen because when you look at what's happening, children, when you look at 16 years old and stuff, and they want to go hunting or fishing, and they don't have the money to buy the license, but they may get out and have a good time. If they hook into a 5-pound largemouth, they're hooked on hunting and fishing forever. Okay. And I was talking to a judge a few years ago, and he said, as a juvenile judge, and he said that every child that comes before him, he asked him if they hunt or fish. And he stated that he's never had a child before him that said they hunted and fishing. So I think this helps, TWRA helps keep a lot of children off of drugs, for example. And you have less juvenile delinquents. I support TWRA 100%, but I cannot support a fee increase on this. And I'll be willing to carry the bill next year to help transfer part of what you generate back over to you in sales tax.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comments, Senator. I didn't hear a question there. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next person on my list. Chairman Faison, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, it's a real situation we find ourselves in here, and I want to somewhat take up for the TWRA. We often hear ourselves talk about how angry we get. The federal government or Congress sends an unfunded mandate to the states. We get real torn up about it. Indeed, our local governments, our city and our county, they pitch absolute fits when we pass a law and we send it to them and it's an unfunded mandate. I would remind this body as we move forward in the discussion today that we actually passed an unfunded mandate to the TWRA in the last few years as far as how they pay everybody on their staff. We don't actually appropriate funds out of the general fund to the TWRA, but we told them you have to start paying everybody here XYZ, and some of them was considerable raises up to like 20% raises. But we didn't backfill that. I'm one of these guys who I really struggle to add any more fees. Full disclosure, I have 5 boys and they're all free range men like their dad. And we end up buying the sportsman's license, which will be $198. That's a lot. It's going to be $1,000 for my boys to hunt and fish. And then to me, it's $1,200 for me to hunt and fish. Passing that. It's not easy. But I also understand that we've saddled the TWRA with doing things that they have to pay for. That being said, kind of admonishing us in the legislature of what we did to them, I don't know where this rule is going today, but I would ask the TWRA to look into their budget moving forward, regardless if we pass this or we don't pass this rule out, regardless of what recommendations made. It feels to me, and after sitting down and talking to Director Maxedon before, there are things that the TWRA is paying for that could be potentially considered an unfunded mandate from the federal government that don't actually have to do with hunting and fishing. I think, from my understanding of looking at y'all's budget and talking with y'all, that there's several $1 million that we use the fees. Y'all pay for your entire organization out of the fees of hunting and fishing. I think potentially we could find some real money if we analyze what are y'all paying for out of the hunting and fishing fees that don't really go back to hunting and fishing. And I think all y'all are probably keenly aware of what I'm talking about. It might be good for this committee or the legislature to understand. And if we can find a way to maybe not pay for stuff in the TWRA that doesn't directly impact hunting and fishing, because that's who's paying for it. And have the legislature, if this is a mandate from the federal government, which it is, then we as a legislature should say, you know what, we'll start paying for that. The TWRA needs to pay for hunting and fishing and all the stuff that goes with hunting and fishing. The things that the federal government want us to pay for, we shouldn't saddle the TWRA with that. That takes y'all putting pen to paper and saying, all right, guys, here's exactly the things that we're paying for in this state that aren't directly related or beneficial to the hunters and fishers. So regardless of what we do today, I want to remind us that we've told them what they have to pay for. We got to be careful not giving them an ability to pay for it. And then further, we need to make sure that y'all aren't using the fees from the hunters and fishers to pay for anything else other than hunting and fishing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for those comments. Representative McKenzie, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, this has been some really good conversation, but, I'd say every year we pass unfunded mandates on to our locals and we continue to do it. So I like this conversation. I just wish we applied because, and I love the conversation about tying things to consumer price index and understanding how we got into this pickle. Because like we just talked about a gas tax, we didn't do that. And we're in another pickle because we didn't do it and we refused to do it. So I want this conversation to be a real conversation about how we govern. You heard the presenter talk about how other states are doing it successfully. And that's by saying that we, as the senator said, we bring in almost $2 billion with $130-40 million budget. So we're getting a return because we're a resource that people like to come in for, but we need to plan that and pay for that. Those things come at a cost, and we're putting these regressive taxes on the people that can least afford it. My colleague from Cotton County can afford it, but someone else in Cotton County with 4 boys can't, just flat out cannot. So what is he left to do? And we're continuing to increase these fees instead of doing the right model, like my colleague from Roane County talked about. Let's fix this. This isn't a fix. This is a small Band-Aid on a flesh wound. This is not sustainable. The salaries will continue to increase. And if we're going to always bring back fees to deal with the salary increases, the increases of crush and run, the increase of trucks and grading equipment, we're fighting a losing battle. That's my problem with this. This is not the solution. And doing a no recommendation, they're going to do it anyway. It's still kicking the can down the road. This can't be how we're going to manage one of our successful resources, which is our lakes, our streams, and our animals that folks like to hunt. And we have a population where they can safely hunt them without reducing the population. We've got a great state, but we got to give it energy. And selectively choosing this gun or that bullet or this bullet is not the answer either. We need to pay for it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comments. Senator Bowling, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the representative for his comments. They were excellent. We have a problem and we need a better solution than what we're doing, because actually what we're doing, I think, is creating another problem. We've already known that the numbers of licenses is decreasing. People are, for whatever reason, not buying them. But to raise the rates of those is going to further decrease the people who are able to afford them. So I think the fact that 1.8 billion is brought in by what you all do, I think we've got to look at the state and a percentage of the sales tax. Right now, we spend money on a lot of things that some of us might question whether that's really the functionality of the state. And I've had a lot of heartburn over that. But over this, I think this is clear that this is a functionality. This is who we are as Tennessee. We want to be known as a place where people can come and enjoy the great outdoors. And we've got every kind of it in all places. We have different venues, if you will. So I'm going to have to oppose this as a solution that is actually going to create another problem. So I think that we have to pledge, just as the representative stated, we've got to pledge to get in there and actually come up with the correct solution that comes from the almost $60 billion budget we have, that we can help fund those things that are critical to who we are as Tennessee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My apologies. I did not hear. Was there a question mark at the end of it? It's all I need to know. No question mark. Thank you for your comments. All right, Representative Hardaway, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. And I heard every word the senator said. Thank you, sir. I'm looking towards your long-term employment. What happens if we say no?
You're recognized.
And in terms of your ability to carry out your functions?
I'm going to defer, if it's okay with the chairman, to someone who has been with the agency for longer than 8 months.
That'd be fine. You're recognized, sir.
Sir, what that will do is that will be $12 million. So what Representative Faison was talking about earlier was a $15 million deficit that we found ourselves in from a salary increase and the compensation package that was put out by the Department of Human Resources. So many folks will say that TWRA is a standalone agency. We're not. We follow all the state procedures that every other agency does. And those salaries are set by the Department of Human Resources. And that's what got us in that position. And you may or may not know this, but the other agencies, obviously you all funded that. And he was talking about that being unfunded to us. So we have to pay that out of hunting and fishing license dollars. And so if we don't pass this, that's going to put us in a $12 million deficit is what that will do to be able to not fund that.
Follow up?
And how would you make that up?
That is a good question. This is part of our plan. Basically, what that will do, we do have some reserve balances. In fact, we have about 6 months worth of reserve that we could use on that. So we would try to fund that with part of that reserve. Now, you all did free up some money for us this year, just to be transparent. So one of the things that happened, we get a portion of the real estate transfer tax. We get 3.25% on 100 of that. And that money has only been able to be spent historically on purchase of wetland properties and maintenance projects for TWRA. And so one of the things, there was a bill passed this year by you all, and you all freed that money up. So we're able to take about $6 million of that money and put it toward salaries and benefits.
And how soon could you start developing a model for some type of hybrid funding mechanism that would involve both fees and a portion of the existing sales tax?
I think this discussion, so I will say this, I'm sad to hear that there's a lot of folks that might not vote to pass this, but I'm very excited to hear what you all are saying, because we've met with several members over the course of the last 2 years, really we've done a poor job as an agency of educating you all on our budget, just being transparent. We've been meeting with a lot of members over the course of the last few years explaining our budget, and I'm thankful that I think several of you have heard that. What you're saying today is very pleasing to us. If this body were to pass something, what's working, every state is facing the same thing that TWRA is facing. We're having a churn. Basically, what we're doing is increasing no more users. It's not just unique to Tennessee. All states in hunting and fishing are facing the same thing. But what works in other states is some portion of a tax. It's different in every state. Some states just has 1/8 of 1% on outdoor tax. Some states have 1/8 of a percent or some portion of a percent on tax. That would be great for this agency. And that's the model that we were coming for. To answer your question on a hybrid model, we would be favorable to pass this today because that gets us a little bit further down the road. That would get us through 2031 if everything passed with what we think is coming with fees. But the long-term solution is coming up with what this body's talking about. That's going to be the long-term solution because all of our costs are going to continue to go up.
All right, I thank you for that. I think there's a spirit on the committee to support such a hybrid model. But I don't know about putting our citizens through the financial strain now while you get that worked out, especially if we've got reserves that can be shifted and you can come back once we get going and replenish those. So I think I'm with the senator on this one. Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to thank all right, I was going to leave it alone, but since the gentleman chose to make note of the unfunded mandates, I was just going to relieve his mind. I think he's confusing what we're doing now with some of the legislation that comes down about Memphis and Shelby County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Got a lot of moving parts today, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for hanging with us. I want to back up to something you said a minute ago. I'm sorry I don't have everybody's names memorized there in the middle. The question was asked, what happens if this doesn't come through? The answer that I got, or maybe I heard it wrong, didn't sound like there was much of a contingency plan. You are a state agency that is subject to appropriations, is subject to fees that come in, is subject to economic downturns, which would diminish those fees that you come in. What are some of the other options that have been talked about, or are there any other than these fee increases?
Obviously, we've been talking about what services that we would cut to all of our constituents. And just to be transparent, we're sitting on 25 officer vacancies now because we've already currently been making cuts to this agency. One of the other fees that came to us was through SDS, which all the state agencies face this. We were not told about this. This was another $1 million that we were hit with, and we're being told that that's going to go up 7% each year. So we just keep getting these fees that we're not really knowing about until they come to fruition for us. But obviously, the next thing would be to determine what services that we're going to cut. And what we're talking about, we're having retirements through attrition. So in our officer classifications, those folks have to retire at age 60. We've already run the projections to see what officers are going to retire out, and we continue not to fill those officer positions. And some may say, why have you chose wildlife officer positions and not say field manager positions? Because we have folks that manage WMAs, folks that manage fish hatcheries, and then we have business level staff. And it's because of the way our funding comes in. And so the way the funding comes, we sell a hunting and fishing license, and then we get a federal match on that license. We have to sell it before we get the federal match. Every state in the country gets this. This is called Pittman-Robertson and Dingell-Johnson money, and that's an excise tax. We have Smith & Wesson in our state. We have Beretta in our state. Every firearm that goes out the door, they pay a tax as a manufacturer on that. This model was set up many years ago. And so the states get an apportionment of that based on the license that you sell, the land base you have, and a couple of other factors. So basically, we can't use that federal funding toward law enforcement. So it makes the most sense that that's the area we would cut. Now, unfortunately, that's the area that a lot of you are going to feel in your districts because we do a lot of boating enforcement. We work a lot of fatalities. We work boating accidents. We're already hearing from some of your constituents, hey, you're not getting people over here in a timely fashion. And that's because there's clusters of county in West Tennessee where they've retired, or we don't have officers that might be able to get on the water quickly. We may have to bring them 3 counties over. But that's part of that plan. If the funding doesn't come through, we're probably going to hold more of those vacancies in there. One thing that helped us, to being transparent, was that wetlands acquisition money. We've not been able to use that for law enforcement, and we pledged to you all that if you open that up, we would use it. So that's going to help us. We're trying to go back and hire 15 this year. I think we could continue to do that. Where this hurts us is on our long-term model. By 2031, we're going in the black. That's what's going to happen.
Well, thank you for that. In that conversation, I think this is a safe statement to make. You all are one of the largest landholders in the state of Tennessee. Is that correct?
I can't answer. I mean, obviously private land is the largest landowner in the state, but we manage 1.6 million acres. Now that is managed in partnership. The state doesn't own that. When I say we as Tennesseans own what TWRA owns, we own right at 600,000 acres. The agency does, TWRA does, the state does. The rest of that is managed in partnerships with like Cherokee National Forest, Tennessee Valley Authority, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. A lot of the lands that we manage, we don't own those.
And in that train of thought, if I'm a business owner and I'm coming up short on funds and I have assets, one of the things that I can do to help fix my situation is to look at liquidating assets. Is that been ever a consideration?
It has been, and there's certain situations. Let me make you aware of a couple things. There's called no net loss by statute. If we lose an acre, we have to replace an acre. And then several of these properties were purchased with federal dollars. And if we sell those, that's a diversion of funds that we have to pay back to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service through that Pittman Robertson money. So we have to be careful. If the properties that are purchased with real estate transfer tax dollars that are wetlands that receive no federal match to those are pieces that we can liquidate, but that no net loss still affects us there.
Okay. And with the number of vacancies that you have now, that you said that was 20
25 law enforcement vacancies right now
of how many? How
of
many?
250 commissioned officers.
Okay. So about 10% unfilled
correct.
right now. Why the first thought to cuts going forward facing to the public? And this comes from, I remember a time not too long ago in our nation's history where we had some budget freeze ups at the federal level. And the first thing that they did was punish the public by shutting down or taking away services from the public. And I'm not trying to sound upset, but when I heard you say that, it kind of made me go, wait a minute, there's got to be another option. You're telling me there is no other option.
Well, I'm strictly telling you from a business model and running this thing like a business, those are the first you're going to pick because the other positions, we get a federal match. And so we can take that dollar and get a federal match. And so it makes us money in essence to be able to do that. Where the law enforcement, we can't put federal match to it. So it just makes the most sense from a business model, even though it's cutting services. You're going to cut services either way because the rest of the personnel are putting habitat on the landscape, which is what your constituents want. So we farm for a living is a better way to describe it. On wildlife management areas, we're planting things like food plots, putting in duck crops, we're managing early successional habitat. And these folks get a federal match to their salary to be able to do that. We get a federal match to a lot of that land to be able to do that, where we don't from the law enforcement. So that's strictly a business model perspective, is to say, hey, we wouldn't be getting that federal match to those law enforcement positions.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate you. Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I'm working with their legal and our legal. Obviously, I see a cold wind blowing. That being said, there is some legitimacy to this rule, which people like Senator Crow, Senator Sutherland, myself could benefit from as it deals with out-of-state, non-resident. I'm working with legal right now to see if there's a way to bifurcate this rule. Back years ago when Senator Bell and I shared this, we could bifurcate some rules. So we're working with them. With that being said, is it all right for me to make a motion with you, Mr. Chair, to roll this rule one space, take up a different rule and see if we can't get some clarification on bifurcating this rule?
Sounds like you're asking for legal some time for maneuvering. All right. I don't have a problem with it. Committee, any issue? Representative Hardaway. Remember, it's your birthday.
Thank you, Chairman. I wish somebody would tell face on that. But my support would be contingent upon whether the senator feels comfortable, since we did not go back to her, which I assumed that we were going to do after the discussion.
What's he doing?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 2-minute recess and sort through a few things. All right, folks, let's resume play here. Senator Rose, I have you up next on our list, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and there's no one in here that really wants to hear my voice because they've already told me that. But I'll make this quick. First of all, there was a comment made about how much it costs children to fish. There's no fee, if I understand right. That's a question to you, Mr. Maxton. Until you're 16, you do not have to have a license to hunt and fish. Is that correct?
Actually, at 13 to 15, you can buy a youth license, and then at 16, you purchase an adult license.
But prior to 13, you do not have to have a license.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. All I want to say is this. I'm not sure our legislature will have an appetite for another funding mechanism. I certainly hope they do. I've enjoyed the comments from both sides of the aisle. Maybe some folks that don't hunt and fish, but I do appreciate it. I just want to get on the record to say, I've shared this with the chairman, Director Maxidon earlier today. I remember when in our local newspaper, the headline was, Mr. Reynolds kills a deer. I mean, that was a big deal because there were no deer in West Tennessee. There were no turkey. And so they had just done a phenomenal job. I don't hear anyone in here questioning the success of TWRA. I want to talk about what we did as a legislature a few years ago. We made boating under influence, I think I'm correct about this, the same penalties as DUI. And we have a lot of folks that are drinking on our waterways. I have a good friend that was hit by a bass boat about 2 months ago, split his boat in half. He trolled sideways. You can't be everywhere just like the highway patrol can't be, but anytime we reduce enforcement, law enforcement on the waterways or in the woods, I think we're making a mistake as Tennesseans. So with that said, I wanted to share those few things. I appreciate all that you do as a wildlife agency, and I hope we do come about. I think there's maybe some recommendations are coming down the pike. So, Mr. Chairman, I will. Oh, one other thing, I have not been hit by an Asian carp in a year and a half, being on the water. And for those of you that don't know, that's just because of the efforts of TWRA to reduce the number of Asian carp. I will ask, how many million pounds of Asian carp have been pulled out of the Tennessee waterways?
I'm going to go to our former chair of fisheries. I'm going to go to Deputy Director Fisk for that.
I believe we're up to about 37.5 million pounds.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. All right, looks like next on our list we have Senator Kyle.
Chairman, I would just like the opportunity that everybody that wants to get comments on the record have that opportunity at this time. And then I would like to speak to my motion.
Okay, we've got one more speaker and then we got some public comment, or one more questioner as of now. Chairman Faison, you recognized?
No, sir. I've got nothing.
No comment. Okay. Oh, Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologies for speaking twice. I appreciate the effort to find some kind of compromise that's helpful. I don't know what that compromise is going to be offered, but I would be cautious about just raising out-of-state fees because we're going to feel another hit on hotels and gasoline and fishing lures and bullets and everything else. So I don't know what's being worked there, but I'd be very cautious about that. And again, I'm committed to try to help find something sustainable. If we can do that together, I don't think what we're doing is sustainable.
Thank you for those comments. Any response? All right.
Public comment.
Public comment. I've got one name on our list, but we are willing and open to hearing from others. I've got a Mr. Drew Hayes. Is Mr. Drew Hayes? Hey, please come forward. Yeah, go ahead and have a seat at the table there. And when you've got, let's say, I think you're the only one up here to speak today. The only one representing Blue Bank. If you would please, when I recognize you, introduce yourself for the record. Tell us who you're with. And sir, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
I just want to thank the committee for letting me come up here and speak, and you, Chairman, as well. And also thank TDWRA. They do a lot for the state, before I say these things. I'm Drew Hayes down at Blue Bank Resort. We're actually the #1 fishing resort in the USA today, according to them, in their Reader's Choice Award 2 years in a row now. So, and again, thank y'all. Without the opportunities the state provides and TWRA provides, we would not be able to do that. But one of my most concerns is with these out-of-state fishing licenses. For Reelfoot, it'll be going from $31 to about $86. I'm estimating that with their handling fees. That's what it was. It was 31 at the beginning of this year. That's just a lot of a burden for our out-of-state guests that are coming to fish and hunt. I don't know a lot of them that are going to be willing to pay that. I already have complaints, even at 31. But I understand they do need money, obviously. So I like kind of what Representative McKenzie said earlier. I think with this out-of-state, what they're doing with that, it's a Band-Aid going on a flesh wound. We need stitches. Obviously, if this goes into effect, I don't think it will be something that fixes the issue. It's just going to cause it to continue bleeding because we're going to lose our out-of-state guests. So I do appreciate the TWRA, and I'm hoping that they said they were willing to work with me on future endeavors, whether this goes through or not. So I look forward to that as well. And I just thank the committee for letting me speak today.
Yes, sir. Thank you for making the trek, and thank you for your comments. And let's see, I've got Senator Jackson. I think I saw your hand first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And just to Drew that is here, he drove over 3 hours. He and his family drove over 3 hours from there in my district over in Lake County, which is a distressed county in northwest Tennessee on the Mississippi River. And they border with Missouri, Kentucky, and Indiana is one of their people from driving in from Indiana to hunt and fish and eat. And at Lake County at the Blue Bank Resort, which they own, I've been there many, many times, and it's a wonderful facility right on the Reelfoot Lake. And if you've never been, you ought to try it. But anyway, this would greatly affect, if this bill goes in, it would greatly be a detrimental effect for their business there. So I think I'm glad to see that we look like we're going to put together a fix where this will work out for TWRA, which provides so many resources and assets for our state. And as Senator Rose said, it's amazing work that y'all have done over the years. I remember when there was never not a turkey anywhere around. Now I see turkey everywhere. I see deer all over the place grazing in the fields and the fisheries that we have that y'all provide fish for. So anyway, thank you TWRA for what you do, but and thank you for driving in today and testifying about what this would do for your business. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Members, do we have any other questions for our presenter, for our guest? Senator Bowling.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Am I on? Yeah, I'm on. Okay. And I think the point that you're bringing up is that none of this is happening in a vacuum. And when this happens, to increase this revenue, it's going to decrease a lot of other revenues for small businesses, for gas stations, for mom and pops, for bait shops, for all the things that makes Tennessee, because 80% of our businesses are small businesses. And we need to make sure that we're not going to do anything that would have an impact on them that actually matters. Some of your giant international corporations, they can absorb a little bit, but this hurts the things that make us who we are. So thank you very much for coming to share your concerns.
Thank you for your comments. Seeing no other comments, Mr. Hayes, thank you for being here today. Appreciate that. And it's my understanding that we may have, recognize the agency there, whoever would like to take it.
Mr. Chairman.
My apologies. Senator Kyle, did you want to ask another question?
No, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. This has been discussions among all sides on this issue. Everyone has had input. If they haven't, I just want their comments on the record. I think you're facing a chilly response in here today, WTRA. So TWRA, excuse me. My motion may depend on what my understanding is the TWRA is wanting to do at this time. So can I hear from them first?
I don't see a problem with that. If you would, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me say thank you first. I just want to thank this body. I think what you have highlighted today is something this agency is very excited about. You have recognized that we do have a funding problem. I want to say thank you for being willing to vocally say that you'll take action on that. And after hearing what we've heard today from this body, it sounds like we are getting a vocal commitment from you that you will move forward to help us with a bill this coming session to help us with some portion of a tax. With that said, if that's what we're hearing, I've asked our general counsel to withdraw the rule today in that effort, and just want to say thank you for what you've done. Chairman, thank you. I know that you've helped orchestrate that and work that with our general counsel. I think that will be a good move for the agency, and at this point, he will withdraw that, and I will take that back and meet with our Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission and go over this.
Thank you. Good.
All right. Okay, thank you for that. I think that probably laid a lot of concerns up here, so thank you very much. Appreciate y'all's efforts in this. I would like to request that we get to both chairmen, chair for the Senate GovOps, chair myself, that in writing in an email, if you could by the end of business today.
Yes, sir.
And a copy of the withdrawal, please. And what your timeline for filing it would be.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Take
Thank
care
you
of that.
very much. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, members.
All right. Have a good day. All right, folks, this brings us now to item number 5, the Sports Wagering Council. If the representatives could make their way forward, please. When you are ready, if you would, introduce yourself, who you're with, and give us an accounting of what we're doing here. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. I'm Stephanie Maxwell. I'm Deputy Director and General Counsel for the Tennessee Sports Wagering Council. And I'm here today to present revisions to 3 sets of our rules, sports gaming license standards, dispute resolution, and minimum internal controls. These are, with one exception, just amendments to existing rules. We do have one new rule, which basically has just taken text that is already in our rules in several places and moved it to a new rule just to be a little bit easier to find. We filed these rule revisions back in November for the first time with the Secretary of State and distributed those proposed rules to all of our licensed operators, which are the sports books offering sports wagering in Tennessee, and our registered vendors. We have discussed these proposed rule revisions with them extensively. We received a lot of comments. We made a lot of changes based on their comments, and have communicated with them and worked with them a lot to get these rules in the right place to present to you today. As you all can see, our rules are pretty lengthy generally, and we do have a lot of changes, but I will just quickly summarize. The changes fall really into 3 buckets. The first bucket of changes are just cleanup and reorganization. We have a lot of duplication in our rules, and things are kind of hard to find, so we're putting them in a better order. We also are as you guys know, in Tennessee, we just have online sports wagering. And so our sports gaming operators are technology companies. So some of these changes are just to keep up with the technology and to prevent bad actors from getting access. We are putting in some stronger standards for know your customer verification. That's to make sure that the person who's trying to create a sports gaming account is who they say they are and that they are over the age of 21. We're putting in some additional standards for geolocation. That's to make sure that the person who's trying to wager in Tennessee is physically here in our state. You can only wager if you are within our borders. We're also putting in some more requirements for our sports gaming operators to work with us when they find suspicious activity or fraudulent activity. They're already required to report that to us, but we're just strengthening some of the requirements for them to work with us. And then the last few changes to our rules, just have to do, we've now been the regulator of sports gaming for 3.5 years, and we have found a couple of things that our operators are required to do right now by rule that they haven't been able to comply with. We are removing one of the requirements for a certain type of insurance that we have found is not effective in this industry, and then changing the requirement for the type of bank account in which they hold their privilege tax under our rules. So that is a very quick summary, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Thank you for that explanation. Representative Fritz, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ma'am, thank you for your time today. I just have one quick question in the abstract section. Last bullet, second page. It's got a 116 at the bottom of the page I have. It mentions use 1800 gambler.
Yes.
I didn't find the word gambling anywhere else in the context. Could you tell me what that is?
Absolutely. So right now, our rules require that every advertisement that an operator puts out in Tennessee has some responsible gaming language. At the bottom, you have probably seen that, and it says they can call, somebody with a gambling problem can call the Tennessee Red Line. There is a national hotline called 1-800-GAMBLER. Our council has already approved the use of 1-800-GAMBLER on ads that run nationally. Some of our operators operate in multiple states, and you can imagine it's really more effective for someone if they can just see that one big number. It's also really easy to remember. But we have confirmed that if you are here in Tennessee and you call 1-800-GAMBLER, it will route you to the Tennessee Red Line. So it still goes to the same place. It's just a little bit easier and hopefully easier for people to remember and see visually.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. And Representative Parkinson, you're recognized. And
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Walk us through how the funding flows from sports wagering to wherever it goes.
So we collect privilege taxes from the wagers that are placed. It is a handle tax. That means it is a percentage of all the wagers that are placed. We track that funding, make sure that the operators are paying the right amount. It's actually administered by the treasurer's office. But as of today, 80% of the privilege tax goes to the Lottery for Education. 15% goes to local governments for infrastructure and emergency services. And then 5% goes to the Department of Mental Health for problem gambling resources. That will change slightly in July based on the bill that passed in the special session that changed where that education funding. So now it will go to the, I believe it's the Education Freedom Act. So that funding does change slightly, but our agency does not operate from the privilege taxes at all. We are funded solely by the licensure and vendor registration fees.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the 80% now has been redirected to the vouchers.
That is my understanding, yes.
And how much of that 80%, how fluid are you in regards to that 80% that you guys have on hand? And how much has been used by or will be used by the education savings?
I am not an expert on that. My understanding is that bill was amended slightly. I think at first it was going to totally go to the education freedom funding, but then that bill was amended to still make sure that the Lottery for Education account stayed at a certain level, if that makes sense, if there wasn't enough funding otherwise. So I don't believe all of it will go to the education freedom funding, but that's a little bit out of my expertise.
Okay, and just
you're recognized.
And just so I'm clear, so prior to that bill passing, where was the money directed in regards to education?
Yes, prior to, it was directed to the Lottery for Education. So it went to college scholarships.
Okay, and so and then based on this legislation that just passed in the ESA bill, now the money that was directed for students for college is going to the students for the private schools.
Yes, that is my understanding. Yes.
Okay, and you don't know how much or how fluid you will be after that money is dispersed?
I don't know. I mean, that money doesn't come to us. We make sure that the operators are paying the appropriate amount, but the treasurer disperses that money, and the treasurer is in charge of making sure that the right amounts go to the right parties. So I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Next up, got Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in your abstract, and I can't, I saw it earlier, but I can't find it now. There's talk about the strengthening the rules as it relates to the cool off and the self-exclusion period. So in my mind, I'm viewing that as someone has a problem and they need a timeout from participating in this particular vehicle for gambling. One, first, is that correct? And then two is, are those people are they only self-identifying themselves through calling into the number, or does the algorithm, does the system identify some way to say that this person is spiraling or spending too much?
Yes, that is a great question. So a couple of things to answer that. First of all, by statute, our sports gaming operators across the state have to offer all of the patrons the opportunity to self-exclude with just that operator. So they might say, I don't want to, I think I have a problem. I don't want to gamble with operator X anymore. Or they also have to offer the opportunity for that person to self-exclude across all operators operating in Tennessee. So under our rule revisions, we are changing that a little bit so that our agency will manage that statewide self-exclusion list. And so what happens there is the individual realizes they have a problem. They can come to our website and put their name on that list, or they can do it through the operator's app or website and get directed to us. We then disseminate that list to all of our operators across the state so that that person is, their accounts are closed and they cannot wager, they cannot receive marketing materials in the state because they have said that they have a problem. Then as far as algorithms and that sort of thing, a lot of our operators do have those things in place to identify those problems. And if they either notice a pattern from a person who seems like they have a problem gambler, or maybe their customer service agent talks to that person and thinks they have a problem, they also will just suspend that because of responsible gambling concerns. And then the other thing you mentioned, like account cool off and that sort of thing, that's a separate opportunity for maybe the person isn't in a situation where they want to totally shut down their access to all accounts, but they want to set some sort of limits where, I can only wager for this certain amount of time every week, or I can only wager this certain amount of money every, certain period of time. And so they are shut down after they have reached those limits. So we just, in this rule revision, have added some definitions to make that clearer so that we can, better require our operators to offer those options.
Follow up?
Yeah, just a brief follow-up. Thank you. And I think all those things are effective. It'd be interesting to see what the numbers look like, what percentages of the people are self-identifying, because I'm assuming it's hard for someone to actually admit that they have a problem. And I think our systems are probably smart enough to know, just something to consider, if they've had 3 overdrafts or 3 insufficient funds within a 3-month period or 1-month period or whatever, that they can be identified as well, because it's a problem. And that's why we wisely chose to put 5% of the funds in that, because we knew it was going to be a problem. And for certain personalities, they're just addicted, or easily are addicted to this type of activity. So I guess my question or suggestion would be that we be more proactive instead of reactive, instead of allowing them to identify that we actually look out and see person X has got a problem. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And Senator Crowe, you're recognized, please.
Thank you. Just before we get too far into this, my understanding is that none of the dollars coming from this would be going to the choice scholarships. None of it. Am I correct?
I believe that to be the case. The conversation got off track a second ago about some of the lottery funds ending up in scholarships, and I don't believe that's correct. I believe all of that money is still dedicated to higher education.
Yeah. I
And
know.
some through K through 12 maintenance too, I believe.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
All right. All right. So we've clarified that. Thank you, Senator Crowe, for bringing that to our attention. And Representative Hardaway, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got three questions, if you don't mind.
Please.
Is the only way for a player to go on the do not play list, so to speak, does that have to be a player request, or can it come from a doctor or a court order or third party?
It does have to be from the individual, yes.
Does any state have an option like that we could adopt? Where if we've got an individual that has a gaming problem, how likely is it? Have y'all done that research? How likely is it they're going to step up and say, don't let me gamble?
I can tell you that we do have several thousand people on that list who have proactively gone and self-excluded. And I can also tell you there are states who have in their gaming statutes the opportunity for the gaming regulator to place someone on an involuntary self-exclusion list. So they believe that person has a problem. The states I have seen are a state like Pennsylvania has that. They also have physical casinos there. So there, I've looked at theirs. They post a picture of the person sometimes on their website, and the person had some issue at a casino in their state, and so they have excluded that person from coming into their properties. But there are states who have an involuntary self-exclusion list. Ours is a voluntary self-exclusion list right now.
Okay. At some point, I'd like to follow up more with you on that. The second is about AI. Do you anticipate that it's going to impact the way that you regulate and deal with the vendors, or that's up to them and the relationship between the gambler and the operators? Is AI going to affect the way that you regulate?
I think it's possible that it could. That is a topic that has come up around the industry, obviously, just like around the country with everything. I will tell you, one of the things that our operators are required to give us each year is a responsible gaming plan annual report, where they have to give us information about how they are handling responsible gaming issues. And one of the questions that is being asked on that right now is how you use something like AI in the responsible gaming world, and how you're tracking to use that to see if someone is having an issue. It could also come up, in other ways outside of the responsible gaming realm. But I do think that's something that is going to affect this industry just like every other one in the near future.
All right, thank you for that. And my third question is, what does integrity monitoring provider define? Who is that?
That is an entity, and there are several different ones around the world, but that they provide reports if there's any allegations of match fixing or insider information being used to place wagers. We get emails from them. The operators all have to work with an integrity monitoring provider. If the operators see an unusual wager, maybe on some event that doesn't usually see a lot of wagering action, all of a sudden there's huge wagers from individuals who've never wagered like that before. They have some indication that those people might have insider information, or there's been some kind of match fixing. The operators report that to the integrity provider, who reports it to all the other operators and regulators. And, sometimes those markets get shut down, or there are investigations or that sort of thing.
So that's one entity, and it's a private entity or federal or international?
Yes, there are several of them that offer it. There are some that are international. There are some in the United States. But yes, they're private entities, yes.
And my last question, who regulates them?
That is a really good question. We do not, we do work with them and they report to us, but they're not registered with us as a vendor. Right now, that's not a category that we require registration from.
Okay, I'm going to probably have more questions on that next year. Thank you for what you do, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. And I did not write, usually when I have a question, I write the page and the section. I did not do that this time for some reason. But I read somewhere in here that wagers could be canceled after the outcome is known. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. So that is, let me find that rule. It just depends on the circumstances. We tried in this rule rewrite, excuse me, to clarify all of those instances. And let's see if I can find that. Hold on. It's been a minute since I looked at that. I may have to get back to you on that one because it'll probably take me a minute to find it. But if that's okay, I may get back to you on that issue. I don't have that right in front of me right now.
That'd be fine.
And if you can find the page, that's great.
If you want to, if you want to, I don't know why I didn't do that this
That's
time.
okay.
But yeah, if you could follow up with an email, that would be
Yes,
great.
I will be happy to do that.
Scratch curiosity. Members, any other questions? Representative Glenn, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just got one question. I promise you, unlike GA, I don't have a 1A or 1B or 1C. You say you clarify what bets are permitted on the collegiate sports. Can you give me an example of what that looks like?
Yes.
That's an interesting one.
So we're not changing the rule or the statute as obviously as to what is permitted. Our rule's written in a little bit of a confusing manner, so we just changed the wording because we've gotten a lot of questions. But basically in Tennessee, you cannot ever place a wager on an individual collegiate athlete's actions. You can't do it before the game. You can't do it during the game, if that makes sense. You can place a wager on the performance or non-performance of a collegiate team before the game, on a prop bet on something to happen, during the game, but you can't place a proposition bet on a collegiate team during the game, if that makes sense.
Any follow-up? No. All right. Kept to your word. Thanks, sir. We appreciate that. Members, any others? Seeing none. Can I get a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have any public comment? Seeing no public comment, we have a motion for a positive recommendation, and Senator Crow's provided us with a second. Members of the House, all those in favor of positive recommendation indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Moves out with a positive recommendation. Now on to the Senate. Mr. Clerk, when you're ready, please take the vote.
Senators Bowling. Senator Bowling passes. Senator Crow. Senator Crow votes aye. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hatcher votes aye. Senator Kyle. Senator Kyle votes aye. Senator Oliver. Senator Rose. Senator Rose passes. Senator Seal. Senator Sutherland. Chairman Jackson. Chairman Jackson votes aye. Mr. Chairman, you have 4 ayes and 2 present not voting.
Rule moves out with no recommendation from the Senate. Members, that brings us now to item number 6.
Thank you.
Underground storage tanks. Representatives could make their way forward, please. Welcome, welcome. If you would please introduce yourselves, who you're with, and a brief explanation of the rules.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Allie Williamson. I'm the Legislative Director for the Department of Environment and Conservation. And with me today is Mr. Jeremy Hooper with our Division of Solid Waste Management. So the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation is proposing updates to its solid waste regulations to modernize language, align with current practices, and improve clarity and efficiency. The revisions aim to reduce outdated or burdensome requirements, enhance environmental and public health protections, and streamline permitting processes. Key changes include clarifying regulatory terms, updating fee schedules without increasing costs, improving landfill and transfer station standards, and strengthening safety measures for leachate management. The proposal ensures the rules better reflect current technologies and industry standards. And I'm happy to go through each of the changes, but I want to specifically point out probably what will stand out to you all is our fee scheduling and timing. This specifically just updates the fee structure and regulatory timelines to match current practice and provide consistency. This update does not increase fees or extend the review period for permits by the Division of Solid Waste Management. Rather, it just serves to clarify and align the fee and regulatory schedule for Division of Solid Waste Management's current practices. One other update that we're doing was one of the comments that we received was from the Department of Health's request, redefining isolation room waste to reduce unnecessary costs for healthcare providers, which we took that. We did make that change. We appreciate their input. And so with that, I will stop to allow for questions.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, you've heard the explanation of the rule. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, do we have, Senator Kyle, you're recognized.
Let me just make sure, cross this T and dot that I, that did the Department of Health have any concerns or objections?
I don't believe so.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Jeremy Hooper with TDEX Division of Solid Waste Management. Know that the Department of Health actually came to us and said this definition is causing some heartburn with the regulated community that handles this type of waste. They felt that it was leading to waste that's not actually infectious being treated as such. So they came to us and asked us to amend this, and we worked with them to come up with that definition or with that update.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Members, any other questions? Seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none. Have a motion for positive recommendation. I have a second from Senator Hatcher. Mr. Clerk, if you would, go ahead and take the vote in the Senate, please.
Senators Bowling. Senator Bowling votes aye. Senator Crow. Senator Crow votes aye. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hatcher votes aye. Senator Kyle. Senator Kyle votes aye. Senator Oliver. Senator Rose. Senator Rose votes aye. Senator Seal. Senator Sutherland. Chairman Jackson. Chairman Jackson votes aye. Mr. Chairman, you have 6 ayes.
Thanks, sir. The rule moves out of the Senate with positive recommendation. Now all over to the House members. All those in favor of positive recommendation indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Moves out with positive recommendation.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your time today. Item number 7, Board of Communications, Disorders and Sciences. Looks like our representatives are about ready to go. Senator Crow, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you. I'm not sure. I guess pursuant to what Senator Watson Holt was saying, that he's going to promulgate, I guess, legislation to deal with this licensure situation. I would think we need to stay this rule for 90 days so that the senator and this group can get together to discuss some of this. Otherwise, and I had a discussion with Senator Watson, he thought that might be a good idea. If you guys would be willing to just hold off a little while so that you can speak with him. And I know that you were a part of that discussion, Holt, this morning.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. And I had not, Holt Witt, Department of Health, had not discussed to stay with him, certainly defer to this body. The rule updates the accrediting information. I think his issue is statutory and would require statutory change. The temporary license he's referring to is something in statute. The pathway for licensure is in statute. So I do understand his concern. I think our preference would be to update the accrediting information in the meantime, but certainly defer to the will of this body.
Well,
Senator Crow, you're recognized.
I'm going to go ahead and move that we stay it for 90 days.
Senator Crowe, if you wouldn't mind, could you hold off for just a moment while we make a few inquiries and
Yeah, we're good.
go through the process? Thank you, sir. Please go ahead and present the rule.
Sure. So this, Olivia Johnson, Legislative Liaison, Department of Health. I'm also joined by Michael Varnell, our advising board attorney for this board. This proposed rule would give speech language pathologist clinical fellows more time to complete their clinical fellowship. This proposed change would align with the American Speech Language Hearing Association standards, which allows speech language pathologist clinical fellows more time to complete their clinical fellowship while working under the provisional license. There were no public comments on this proposed rule, and all board members voted in the affirmative of it. And at this time, we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, any questions? I'll ask, what was the impetus to extend the time to complete clinicals?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to summarize what was discussed this morning, and then again, happy to work with Chairman Crowe on whatever he thinks is most appropriate. The accrediting body that is referenced in this rule, one part of this rule updates to their most current accreditation standards. There were some questions that Chairman Watson had about this accrediting body and that path for licensure, and the fee associated with it. Since our discussion this morning, I conferred more with legal. There's an additional path to licensure that requires 400 hours of supervision in a clinical setting that would be secondary to the ASHA path for licensure. The other parts of the discussion this morning were around reimbursement through Medicare Part B, excuse me. The CMS has ruled very recently, and we found out yesterday, that they're not going to reimburse on the temporary licenses that would accompany both the clinical setting hours or the ASHA path. And so because that temporary license is established in statute, it would require a statutory change for us to come up with a different licensure scheme to address that if CMS doesn't change their mind in the future. So we fully anticipate a robust conversation around this, given the changing landscape, which we're more than happy to participate in and defer to this committee on next steps. But for this rule change, it just updates the current accrediting information to the most recent version of it for that accrediting body.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I did see little bits and pieces of that. I wasn't able, unfortunately, to watch it all this morning. Anybody that was involved in the committee this morning have any other inputs? Seeing none. Senator Crowe, you're recognized, sir. Oh,
So Holt, you feel comfortable that what Senator Watson was trying to do is not sufficiently related to this action we would take today to hold off and talk a little bit?
Certainly, thank you, Chairman. I certainly don't want to speak for Senator Watson. Based on your conversation with him, I defer to you on what you think is most appropriate. We could come back in 90 days and discuss this. I don't think much will change until a statute is changed in the future, though, to address his concern about the temporary licensure.
All right. Well, we can go ahead, I think, Mr. Chair.
okay. Representative Fritz, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And one of the things we talked about this morning with Senator Watson was, could you statutorily reduce the fee? Part of what I thought was the concern I heard from Senator Watson is these individuals are paying twice. And is it possible to amend that fee out or down on our side of it so that that person doesn't have to pay twice to earn the living?
Thank you for the question. The board currently sets the fees and rule. The legislature can pass a law to do whatever the legislature thinks is appropriate. If y'all wanted to change the fee structure and how that works. Currently, our fees are in rule across our boards. The board could look at that. I will add that if somebody's moving from the temporary license to the full license, they're not paying a separate fee for that. So they would pay the one fee for their application that would carry over. That is in our rule. If they chose to go the ASHA route, there is a fee associated with that. If they practice in a clinical setting, it's under the supervision of another doctor, they wouldn't have to pay that ASHA fee. So there are multiple ways to go about it. But yes, the board could consider that. The legislature could also consider that.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only thought was that based on what I heard from the senator this morning, there might be an opportunity to provide at least a short-term relief if that was the agreed to path until something else could take place.
Any other questions? Yeah, Representative Glenn,
Thank
recognized.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The two fees you're referencing, do you get a piece of those two fees or you only get one fee? So the state fee is one thing and then the ASHA fee is something else. You have nothing to do with that fee. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir, that's correct. That if somebody chooses to use that third-party accrediting association, we do not collect any money from that organization. We collect a licensure fee for the application or for the renewal, and that goes to sustain the board functions. It goes back to the board for licensure and staffing and that sort of thing.
Follow up.
So when you say as the legislature, if we chose to adjust something, we would be adjusting your part and your part only. So in other words, we could end up adjusting it and you lose some of the fees you need to operate. Is that, am I correct in that assumption?
If the board lowered its fees for licensure, it would just, yes, it would be less money paying for staff and renewals and things like that go to the function of the board. It doesn't go to the general fund. It stays with the boards. The third party is its own entity. If an individual chooses to go that path, they pay that third party as part of their accreditation.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for that. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, do we have any public comment? Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry, just a second. I've got somebody else. Senator Crowe, you're recognized, sir.
Yeah, I think I am going to go ahead and move to stay this because I think they need to talk before we get going with planning legislation and all that. And 90 days isn't going to hurt anything. So I would make that motion that we stay it.
We have a motion and a second to stay the rule for 90 days. Without objection, we're going to go take a vote in the House. Members, all in favor of staying this rule for 90 days indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Clerk, if you would, please take the vote in the Senate.
Senator Bowling. Senator Bowling votes aye. Senator Crowe. Senator Crowe votes aye. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hatcher votes aye. Senator Kyle. Senator Kyle votes aye. Senator Oliver. Senator Rose. Senator Rose votes aye. Senator Seal. Senator Sutherland. Chairman Jackson. Chairman Jackson votes aye. Mr. Chairman, you have 6 ayes.
Thank you for that. Rule moves out with positive recommendation. I'm sorry. The rule moves out with a 90-day stay.
Thank you, Chairman and members.
They stayed 90 days. There we go. That wouldn't be true either. Item number 8, Department of Commerce and Insurance, firefighting personnel. Welcome back, Senator. Good to see you as always.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Please introduce yourself and let us know what we're doing.
Don't want to get in front of the chairman. So my name is Mike Bell, Assistant Commissioner of the Division of Fire Prevention for Commerce and Insurance. And with me today is Graham Tudor, Assistant Legislative Director, and Heather Zimmerman, the Director of the Firefighting Commission. The Firefighting Commission is responsible for the certification of volunteer and paid firefighters in the state of Tennessee and administering the Education Incentive Pay Program. Y'all probably know that the Firefighting Commission is appointed by the Speaker of the House, Speaker of the Senate, and the Governor. Before you today is a rule packet that rewrites the firefighting rules to align standards with modern industry practices, make the language and requirements easier to understand, and make it easier for firefighters to participate in the Educational Incentive Pay Program. These rules have been drafted and filed after several stakeholder meetings from 2022 and 2023, with a rulemaking hearing held in January of 2024. We did receive comments at that rulemaking hearing and made several changes to address these comments. I'm happy, or my subject matter experts are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that explanation. Representative Fritz, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for your time. Just one quick question. On page 329 of the packet, just for reference, there's several places where we have stricken the CPR certification Just curious for a quick overview as to why we took that out to be eligible for the training.
Okay.
There's 3 places that takes place.
Thank you for the question. Heather Zimmerman, the Executive Director of the Fire Commission. So the CPR was taken out because it has been brought to our attention that it's difficult for a lot of the volunteer firefighters to acquire that certification. So we don't want to exclude them from being able to participate. So the commission board members felt that it was appropriate to remove that so that we could make sure that these individuals are afforded an opportunity.
Thank you.
Any follow-up? Members, any other questions? Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that. Can you explain that one more time? The CPR requirement was removed from.
Thank you for the question. It was removed from the education incentive pay. So for the volunteer firefighters to acquire the $600 or the full-time firefighters, that was part of the requirement is they have a CPR card. And so again, it was removed so that the volunteer firefighters can have a better opportunity of actually being able to participate in that program.
Follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, I'm a retired firefighter, 25 years with Shelby County Fire Department. And it was always required that at a minimum, we knew CPR. You know, the firefighters make more medical calls than they make fire calls. And for that to be removed, that requirement of basic CPR to be removed is I'm not sure whose idea that was, who came up with that idea, but that's the basics. There are CPR instructors in every corner of our state. CPR instructors. As a matter of fact, one of the volunteer firefighters could become a CPR instructor and instruct the other volunteer firefighters. So, you know, that's basic life saving. And so, you know, I think that was a bad idea, a terrible mistake for somebody to decide to remove CPR from, you know, the requirement to receive these state incentives, especially given that that may be the one thing that is needed to save someone's life in these rural communities, or at least keep them alive until they can get to a hospital or get to somewhere else. And I think y'all should go back and take another look at that and reconsider, putting that back in as a requirement, a basic requirement, the basic requirement for these state incentives.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative Parkinson, you and I have had this conversation about firefighting many times over the years. I've served 15 years as a volunteer, and I was a CPR instructor, American Heart Association, and gave those classes to my department while I was there. I can tell you, 2021, I think, maybe 2022, when the legislature passed the volunteer education incentive program pay, which has been available to paid firefighters for decades and police officers for decades. Y'all, at that time, even me, we envisioned that our volunteer firefighters from all over the state would participate, 30 hours, and the commission put in certain things for training. But what's happened, what's happened is the numbers that we hoped would take advantage of the education incentive pay have not in the volunteers. And I agree with you with the importance of CPR. I think the commission will hear your comments today and consider those. But we're trying to get the volunteer firefighters to do the 30 hours of training, which is there's a lot of things they can do to get the 30 hours of training. But looking at some of the things that are tough to deliver in rural areas. In my area, we had a couple of guys, and myself and another person in our department who were certified with the American Heart Association to teach CPR. But we have found in many areas of the state, they're just not available. They're just not there.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator. I appreciate it. However, we do not want to incentivize being less qualified. And we do not want to incentivize moving away from the basic mission of a firefighter, which is to save lives. CPR saves lives. And I think that, we are giving, incentivizing rather, individuals to be mediocre in something that can or possibly will be the difference maker between somebody living and dying in that moment, someone's loved one. And so I just hope that y'all will go back and take another look at that and rescind that idea of not being CPR certified, because if they really want to be CPR certified, just like you did, they will become CPR certified.
Okay.
There's no excuse for that. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And just curious, the difference between certified and knowing how to do CPR. I'm guessing that most of the volunteer fire departments have people that can train them how to do CPR without them necessarily being through a 30-hour class. Is that a fair statement? Maybe. Okay. Just checking. Yes, sir. You recognize it.
Is the CPR class a 30-hour class?
No.
I just want to make sure we cleared that up.
That's right.
No.
I misunderstood earlier. My mistake. Senator Bowling, you're recognized.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. But along those same lines, in Tennessee, are 70% of our firemen volunteers? And so that really expands the vulnerability, if you will, of the people, because 82 of our counties are rural, and that's where most of your volunteers are going to be. And if they are not certified in CPR, that does expose a lot of Tennesseans to be without the best training. So that is problematic, and I understand that it's difficult to get them to do it. But they do get a lot of other training, and we have made it where they didn't have to pay for some of it. And we have tried to make sure that the volunteers could get the best training available. So thank you all for that.
You're recognized for comment.
Graham Tudor, Assistant Legislative Director with the Department of Commerce and Insurance. I would just like to note that, these people are going to be volunteer firefighters regardless of the CPR training or not. It was something that was added in there as hopefully to incentivize them to get it. But again, we've heard multiple feedback from rural areas that it's a difficult thing to get in some areas of the state. And so that's why we've removed it. At the end of the day, if someone's getting 30 hours of training, that's more training than they may have been getting. And a more trained firefighter is a safer firefighter.
Representative Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to continue the conversation on the CPR piece, is it not possible to work with maybe the local hospital, even in the rural communities, there's some sort of medical facility there where doctors who are, they have to have CPR. Is it not possible to work with some of these medical facilities that are in these rural communities to certify those volunteer firefighters so they don't have to travel, an hour to a facility or something like that, or they could just go to, that doctor's office at a certain time and get that training? Is it not possible to coordinate something like that so that they are certified?
We'd be happy to, work with local, hospitals and things of that matter. But you've got to remember, these are volunteers that a lot of times are responding to calls, leaving the farm, leaving the tractor running, to rush to get to a call. And so it may not be reasonable for them to travel to their nearest hospital to get the training. So, making it a requirement might be a stretch, but we'd be happy to work with, different stakeholders to offer it as prevalent as possible.
Mr. Bell.
And Mr. Chairman, I would also like to say that when this was, and I have to go back to sometimes personal experience, it was an SOP for my department back in the 90s, long time before this educational program ever came along. It's an SOP in many departments in the state. This is just specific to the volunteer education incentive pay, which again, we were directed by the legislature at that time. We want you to encourage firefighters to get 30 hours of training, encourage them to become more trained firefighters for the benefit of our whole state, especially as Senator Bowling has pointed out, our rural parts of our state who are mostly covered by volunteer firefighters. But this one particular part, as only it applies to the incentive pay was becoming an issue. Again, the SOPs for all the departments I know of require CPR. And this is not going to change that at all. The departments around the state that were doing it before this educational incentive pay was created in 21 or 20 are going to continue to do it. The ones who, after this rule passes, are going to continue to do it. It only affects the qualifications or the criteria for the education incentive pay. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Representative Parkinson, I got you up next. If you could quickly, please.
I'll be very brief.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I was sitting here reading. Well, number one, it's incentive. It's to incentivize training, and CPR should be a part of that. It's to incentivize, because they can always say, I don't want the incentive and not get CPR. The other thing is the mission. The primary mission of a Tennessee firefighter is, number one, to protect lives. And then it says, and property by responding to fires. So protect lives is number one. And then secondly, medical emergencies and other hazardous situations. Protect lives is the number one thing that comes up in the mission of a Tennessee firefighter. So thank you.
Senator Hatcher, you're recognized.
I'd like to make a motion, positive recommendation, to move us out.
We have a motion for a positive recommendation. We have a second. Members? Oh, I'm sorry. We've got to ask for public comment real quick. Any public comment? No public comments. So we do have a motion and a second standing. All those in the House in favor of positive recommendation, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? And the ayes have it.
I like to see that senator stand up. Was Glenn?
Mr. Clerk, please, if you would, I'm sorry. Do we have a result?
Well,
Positive recommendation in the House. And for the Senate, would you please take the vote?
Senators Bowling. Senator Bowling votes aye. Senator Crow. Senator Crow votes aye. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hatcher votes aye. Senator Kyle. Senator Kyle votes aye. Senator Oliver. Senator Rose. Senator Rose votes aye. Senator Seal. Senator Sutherland. Chairman Jackson. Chairman Jackson votes aye. You have 6 ayes in the Senate.
Thank you for that. And the rule moves out with positive recommendation. Next up, you're back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Mike Bell, Assistant Commissioner for the Division of Fire Prevention with Commerce Insurance. With me today is Graham Tudor, Assistant Legislative Director, and Chris Bainbridge, the Director of Codes Enforcement. Before you today is a rule packet that makes additions to our electrical installation rules and the permanent rules for the recent third-party inspections and plans review statute of 2024. For the electrical installations, we are putting in a rule in rule what already exists in statute, which is that a temporary service release permits expire in 45 days after inspection. Additionally, we are adding a new fee, and I would say a restructured fee, because there's already a fee for this. This is a restructured fee for the inspection fee for recreational vehicle parks. The fee is negotiable based upon the number of pedestals and the ampere capacity of service. The fee is subject to the Commissioner's approval. The other piece of these rules is in response to Public Chapter 771 of 2024, which allows individuals to utilize Tennessee registered engineers and architects to perform third-party plans reviews and inspections in lieu of local inspections. Emergency rules were before GovOps in November of 2024, and these permanent rules are identical to the emergency rules that you approved in November. A public hearing was held in January of 2025, and we received no public comments, and I'm happy, or my subject matter experts are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, do we have any questions? Senator Rose, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here. Senator Bell, I don't know if this discussion I had with you, but somewhere I had a discussion with someone about the length of time a temporary. Can you elaborate on that if you know that is data is like 45 days or?
You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, thank you, Senator Rhodes, for the question. If you remember, thank you, Senator Rhodes, for the question. So yes, it's in statute that the length of a temporary power pole is 45 days, and you and I both know, you more than me, that construction projects go on for years sometimes. But that's what the statute says, and that's the statute. That's been the statute since 2007, and we're doing this rule to mirror the statute.
Follow up.
Yeah, the follow-up would be, it's right. It doesn't make sense, and I'm sure it's not being enforced.
No.
So maybe we should take legislative action to fix that. So if you would be kind enough to remind me during session, and I will, if you would help me draft something, we'll get that fixed.
You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's another member of this committee who's also asked about potentially working on fixing this, and the department is happy to work with you and the other members of the legislature if y'all decide to address this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Representative Fritz, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all again for your time. On page 347 of the packet, I just had one question. We've added in several things under definitions, and exempt jurisdiction is one of those. I went back and reviewed that code. But my question is this, does this apply only to electrical, or does it get into all general inspections as far as adding this definition in to the rule package?
Would you like?
Yeah.
So
there you go.
There we go. So in an exempt jurisdiction, so the state adopts the statewide minimum building codes. An exempt a jurisdiction can choose to adopt and enforce their own code, which is more stringent than the state or equal to. And so an exempt jurisdiction, we wanted to define it. It's a term we've used, but we wanted to make sure it's defined and clear what an exempt jurisdiction is.
You recognized.
And that applies to all inspections, not just electrical, for exempt jurisdiction. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
You recognized.
Chris Bainbridge, I'm the director of the Codes Enforcement section. So there's different types of exempt jurisdictions. There's one for commercial building inspections and plan reviews. There's one for residential inspections, and there's also one for electrical inspections. So it just depends on the type of exemption the jurisdiction has as to what buildings and the types of inspections that are performed.
And
I understand, and I guess that's last follow-up would just be, so this does include all inspections, not just electrical, this definition.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Chairman Faison, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, I just want to make sure I understand correctly what we're saying. Are there construction places that the contractors are paying double for inspections?
Yeah.
So for the third party rules, these are rules for the law that was passed for third parties. And so it is the option of a designer or a contractor to utilize the third party instead of using the city or the county's inspections. And so they make that choice. But the answer is yes, they would. They would still pay the county or city their normal inspection fee if they choose to utilize the third party.
Follow up.
One more question. Commissioner, do you go out on these inspections with these inspectors?
You recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have gone out with, I've gone out to some school inspections, and I've gone out to some manufactured home inspections. And to me, it's interesting to see what our state employees are doing on the ground. I know y'all probably gone out with your state employees in different circumstances before, and I think it's great to see what the employees of Commerce and Insurance are doing.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner, have you recently been out with inspectors?
Let's see. It's been 7 or 8 months since I've been out with the inspector.
So I was just noticing that big bandage on your head and wondering, did you bump into a power pole? Did you get electrocuted on one of these inspections, Commissioner?
I thought I heard stand up, but apparently she said shut up. Okay.
Okay. Do we have any further questions from the members? Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, we have a motion for a positive recommendation. Members of the House, all those in favor of positive recommendation indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Let the clerk's got you. And if you would, please take the vote in the Senate, Mr. Clerk.
Senators Bowling. Senator Bowling votes aye. Senator Crowe. Senator Crowe votes aye. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hatcher votes aye. Senator Kyle. Senator Kyle votes aye. Senator Oliver. Senator Rose. Senator Rose votes aye. Senator Seal. Senator Sutherland. Chairman Jackson. Chairman Jackson votes aye. Mr. Chairman, you have 6 ayes in the Senate.
Thank you for that. Rule passes out of both chambers with positive recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Item number 10, we have today the Department of Children's Services. When you're comfortable and ready and your microphones are activated, please introduce yourself and let us know about the rule.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members. My name is Jim Lehman. I'm the Legislative Director for the Department of Children's Services. And I have with me Sammy Mayfair, our General Counsel at DCS. We're here today for updates to our rules regarding procedures for permanency plans, which were last updated in October of 2012. These rule changes were made consistent with recent updates to Tennessee Code Annotated 37-2-403 and include a requirement that permanency plans be developed within 30 days of the child's foster care placement and include a statement of responsibilities for the parents, the department, and the department's case manager, and require that any parent whose child has been in state's custody for 6 months or longer due to abuse or neglect to complete a trauma-informed education class before the child is returned to the parent. The department held a rulemaking hearing on these rules on December 3rd, 2024. We did not receive any comments from the public. So with that, Chairman, we'd ask for a positive recommendation of these rules, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for that explanation. Members, do we have any questions? Senator Bowling, you're recognized.
Thank you, and thank you for this. I know it's desirable to get kids reunited with their parents, and I feel strongly about that. These children, within 30 days, now is that only if they've been removed because of abuse or neglect? Or is it all children who are removed from the home?
You're recognized.
Thank you. Senator, it's for every single child that enters foster care. The requirement is that we complete a permanency plan within 30 days of that removal from the home.
In the permanency plan is the desire for to look for every way to reunite them with their parents, or is this to place them in foster homes?
The permanency plan is the roadmap for what's going to happen with that case. So each permanency plan would identify goals for that child and that family. So return to parent, exit custody to relative, if it is appropriate, adoption. So whatever the goals are. And then it's the services that the family needs to complete to be able to finalize those permanency goals.
And please.
When you have children that are illegally here, what do you do with those children if in fact you don't know where the parents are or whatever? Where are they supposed to be returned to a federal agency? How does that work in Tennessee?
You recognize.
So for any child that may be an undocumented child that enters the custody of the department, we still assess for safety like we would any other child. So we have a court order that places that child into our custody, and so we have to comply with that state court order. We do cooperate with federal officials that are reaching out and requesting information about the child. We liaise frequently with those officials to help determine what the best plan for each individual child that may enter our custody looks like.
Senator Bowling?
The federal agency that I thought you had to turn the child over quickly, do they have the mechanism to find the child's parents if and when that is possible, whereas you all might not have that mechanism?
Please.
And yes, and that's part of what we can do to liaise with them as well, is sometimes locating that parent in the home country, if that's what's appropriate to do, doing safety assessments in the home country, if that's what's appropriate to do, or even sometimes those parents are here as well. And then so making the determination of whether it's appropriate for that child and that parent to be dealt with in the same, excuse me, in the same mechanism.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Bowling, for breaching that topic. It's made me wonder, I wasn't clear on your answer. Are we talking about how you place children who are citizens by birth with parents in another country, undocumented parents in another country?
You recognize.
Is that part of your response to Senator Bowling?
And I want to make sure I understand as well. Whenever we have a child that enters custody who is undocumented, so is not a citizen by birth, that's what we're talking about. It's, the mechanisms that we do to find appropriate permanency for those children as well. For children who are U.S. citizens or citizens by birth, I mean, we just treat them like we do all of the other children that are in foster care. I mean, and particularly, again, when we're talking about these rules and our permanency plans, every child that enters the custody of the department is to have a permanency plan completed.
All right, but you made reference to assessments of conditions in other countries. Would you do that for a citizen baby, anticipating reuniting that child with the undocumented parent that has been sent back to their original country?
You recognize.
Yes. So again, that's going to depend on the circumstances of each child. So if in that circumstance that child was born here and a parent was returned to their home country of origin, if it is what is appropriate for that child, we would look at potentially placing that child into the parent's home country, since if those rights haven't been terminated or impacted in any way and it is safe for that child to be reunited with their parent, that is one of the things that we look at and work through. It's all going to be an individualized case plan about what is appropriate and safe for each child that enters our custody.
So there might be situations where the parent is returned to a situation that's unsafe in their country of origin, where you would assess that it's not safe for the child and you would prioritize keeping the child in the U.S.?
You recognized.
Again, that would also be, again, in those conversations and cooperations with federal agencies about what the appropriate disposition for that child would be. Some of these children would have attorneys that are representing them to petition for status, if that's appropriate. But again, if they are a U.S. born child, and it's not appropriate to reunify with an out-of-country parent, then we would treat that the same as we would have a U.S. born child with a in Tennessee parent. And if we need to seek termination of parental rights, if we need to seek other permanency options, we would do that for that child just like we would, again, a child that was removed from a Tennessee parent.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one of my own, EF1G. I think what you're telling me is it will be left up to the state courts as opposed to the federal courts on what happens with that child. Is that right? If it had to go into a court.
It would be a conjunction, depending again on what proceedings were happening. But typically, for any child that would have status in the United States, they're going to be subject to a state court order.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
letting me get some clarity on that.
Yes, sir. Members, any other questions? Representative Glenn, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just out of curiosity, how much interaction do you have with the parent that's losing the child? The reason I ask is because obviously we all have probably experienced cases where someone calls and, with an issue. And the answer is, well, they are not telling me anything. So how much interaction do you have with the parent that's losing the child?
So we should be having fairly frequent contact with that parent. Again, with these rules, the idea is we create that permanency plan within the first 30 days of a child entering foster care. The process for creating that plan is supposed to be a collaborative process where we're actually having what we call a child and family team meeting, which would include, the removal home. If there is another parent who may have been an absent parent, but we're still not able to place with that parent yet. If there's family supports, if there are providers, that team comes together and works towards the development of that plan. And that's happening within the first 30 days of a removal. There are we have a lot of policies around when we are supposed to be having contacts with families, how frequently we're having contacts with family. And so those are all set out to make sure that we are engaging with that, the removal home. There's also a parallel court process that's happening that have a number of timeframes that happen. We're supposed to have that initial removal hearing within 3 days. We have an adjudicatory hearing within about 30 days, or at least we're back in court within those timeframes, even if the full hearing isn't completed. These permanency plans that we're talking about have to be ratified within 60 days. So there's at least judicial touch points with the family, and then we have policy touch points with the family.
And just out of curiosity, again, I'm not very smart in this area. The losing parent, once that child has been removed, I'm assuming permanently, that's what the permanency plan is, that parent does not get the child back unless they have to go through the process. Is that correct?
And I just want to clarify here again, Jim Lehman, Legislative Director, I think a large majority of our cases where a child is removed from the home, a large majority of those, the children ultimately return home. So in many, many, many of our cases where there's a removal, at least one of those goals of the permanency plan is to return the child home. And so the permanency plan says that's our goal, to return the child home. What steps does this parent have to take to get there, right? So that's kind of what permanency plans are in general, and that's what these rules are about. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment? Seeing none. Can I get a second? We have a motion for positive recommendation and a second. Mr. Clerk, if you would please take the vote in the Senate.
Senators Bowling. Senator Bowling votes aye. Senator Crowe. Senator Crowe votes aye. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hatcher votes aye. Senator Kyle. Senator Kyle votes no. Senator Oliver. Senator Rose. Senator Rose votes aye. Senator Seal. Senator Sutherland. Senator Jackson or Chairman Jackson. Chairman Jackson votes aye. Mr. Chairman, you have 5 ayes and 1 no in the Senate.
Thank you for that. We've got a positive recommendation in the Senate. Moving over to the House, all the members in favor of positive recommendation indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Rule moves out with positive recommendation. Thank you all for being here today. Last up, item number 11, the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation. Gentlemen, when you're ready, introduce yourselves and let us know about the rule.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lou Hanneman with the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation. Today, bringing with also Peter Abernathy, who is our agency lead over that department. What we have for you is a minor adjustment to the rules around Tennessee Promise. If you'll recall, Tennessee Promise passed back in 2013, had a couple of components to it that required students to participate in order to maintain their eligibility. One, a mentoring program after applying, attend several meetings, and also community service. The requirements instituted at the time were 8 hours of community service each semester. What we have seen over time, both in communication with students, but also our partnering organizations, is that students will often want to do their community service during the summer and then have those hours carry over for the duration of the year. This rule does that. It allows students to essentially complete their community service hours and then bank that and have that roll over from one semester to another or from one year do another as well. This does not reduce in any way the number of community service hours that are required for students to participate. It simply adjusts when those students can do them and use them throughout the year. Any questions? Happy to answer.
Thank you for that explanation. Seems to make pretty good sense. Members, any questions? Oh, Representative Hardaway, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I think it makes sense if I understand it correctly. So it wouldn't matter if the requirement was for 100. It wouldn't matter whether I did the 100 the first year and then bank them and apply them to the following. And okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Members, any other questions? Seeing none. Any public comment? Also seeing none. Members of the House, I need a motion and a second. We have a motion and a second on positive recommendation. Members of the House, all those in favor of positive recommendation indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it in the House. Now on to the Senate. Mr. Clerk, please.
Senator Bowling. Senator Bowling votes aye. Senator Crow. Senator Crow votes aye. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hatcher votes aye. Senator Kyle. Senator Oliver. Senator Rose. Senator Rose votes aye. Senator Seal. Senator Sutherland. Chairman Jackson. Chairman Jackson votes aye. Mr. Chairman, you have 5 ayes in the Senate.
Thank you for that. Rule moves out with a positive recommendation. Thank you, gentlemen. With that, completion of our calendar. Mr. Birthday Hardaway, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just need some clarification. I'm going to make a request of the committee either today or next meeting on something. So I want clarification on what it takes to bring a department or agency in to answer questions before the committee. And I'm talking about Trousdale Prison and the Tennessee Department of Corrections. Do we do a written request? Do we do a the pose the questions first, or we have the meeting? Tell me how that goes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Getting some help from some colleagues up here. We would need to go through the speakers of both houses, figure out who it is that we want to talk to, who we want to have in front of us, and what the subject matter would be. And I've just been informed also on the Senate side, there is a hearing going to be taking place here in just a couple of weeks, I believe.
Actually, we're going to be visiting the prison and that, meet with people down there. We have our oversight committee.
The oversight committee's going to visit and take view of the conditions. And that is the process. So yes, sir, you're recognized.
So that request to the speakers should come through the chair in writing or as verbal, or is this clear enough right now of my request?
There need to be some conversations take place before we pull the trigger on that.
Very good. And just one to the Senate. May I tag along on your visit?
I think somebody gave a nod over there a second ago that you'd be plenty welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That's the worst situation I've seen in the prison system since I've been in office since 2007.
Members? Senator Hatcher, you're recognized, sir.
Representative Hardaway, if you'll get with me, we'll get you, we have to give the names to them. If you'll get with me so that you can visit with us on July 7th. Yeah.
You got to pass that background check. All right. Representative Parkinson, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if you could get a list of the House members that would like to make that trip with the Senate, that would be helpful because I think I want to go also.
Let me put you straight in touch with Senator Hatcher. He's here in the room right now. You've got his email address. You can handle this. I have confidence in you. Members, anybody want to adjourn? We're adjourned.